on the scoreboard, make sure you just post it on our Facebook page so I can update it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask some questions. Paul, what are you on track to do for 2022?
Total gross for the year,
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
probably about 950.
950. So if you did another 50,000 between now and Christmas, you'd break the million.
We mailed everyone in leadership the amount they could save, texted them, and we've been meeting with them.
Good.
So I'm trying to shake the tree as hard as we can for that.
Good, good.
And the
And-
surprising thing is it only takes 2 or 3 of them to hit that 50. I mean, it doesn't take many.
Not at all, not at all. But that's a good target is set the goal for breaking 1 million this year. That's exciting for everybody. And you can bonus everybody some pretty exciting things, and they can, the nice thing is it creates the momentum that now it seems like the low goal is to be at 1 million next year and the high goal is 1.5 or something like that. Gustavo, you've been having some record numbers. I'll jump around randomly here. What do your main school? What do you think you'll hit this year?
I can tell you right now, 1 second. Right now, we're at 529 for the year, 529K, and we'll probably finish off probably about 560, but probably about, right now, my projection for this month is about 40,000. I've been swinging for the fences like Sal, but no responses right now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But so that you know, that's last year we were at the low threes.
yeah.
so
Well, that
we're-
was my next question. Is so.
Yeah.
So you're going to be up what? 100?
Almost double.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we almost doubled.
Excellent. Excellent. That's a heck of a record there. So
And our goal for this year is to do the same.
okay. Tim, what are you looking at for end of the year?
1.167.
Okay. And what would it take to hit 1.2?
Besides 3K.
33K. We're down to about our 3 top prospects for some paid in fulls.
You only need 1 or 2.
Well, one of them is only about $5,000. The other 2 are in that 14 range.
Oh.
So yes.
Maybe all 3.
Yeah, exactly. So we're still working on it, and we have 2 renewal conferences today. Actually, we've got 6 this week. So, we're always going to test the waters on those as well and see where they're at. And I know we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 enrollment conferences this week. So if I said enrollment on the first one, I meant renewal. 6 renewal conferences this week and 5 enrollment conferences. So we'll see what we can pull out of that.
Okay, good.
Hey, sir,
Jason?
really quick question.
Go ahead.
In regards to Paul, you said something about mailing. What did you actually mail, and how did you word it? Did you say, hey, here's a chance to save X amount?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a special this season. You can save, and we just did like an export and an autofill, so the name was on the letter and the amount they could save was on the letter. And we just kicked them all out as letters to start the conversation at the beginning of the season. And then we took those letters and we texted it all, and then we're doing progress checks with the whole school. So when, especially a leadership, as Master Moody said, we're trying to just move everyone forward, whether it be a renewal conversation, go from black belt program to leadership or leadership to prepay. I have that handy when I'm meeting with the folks, and hey, did we mention you could save this?
And we posted a couple of the paid in full letters, but just to see a different version, if you want to post your letter that you sent, Paul, Yeah, it does help to reach out, but what I found when we sent those letters, I had to have extra letters printed up in the office. So that way my tie-in line was, you know, a little, hi, how you doing? What's going on? And then, oh, did you get our letter about how you could save such and such and you could still make monthly payments? And then they go, no, I didn't. How did you send that? And so, well, I actually emailed it and I also sent a hard copy in the, oh, and then they say, well, let me check my mail. I didn't remember seeing it. Maybe my wife opened it or something. And then you just pull out and say, well, here's a letter for you. And then you use that as your tie-in to go over the numbers with them.
Yeah,
But
but the
don't wait for them to just come to you. You've got to, every one of those that you send a letter to, you just follow up. Did you get my letter?
Yeah.
Et cetera.
Do you think it's is it too late to send letters if I got them out by tomorrow or the next day?
No, no,
No,
no.
Okay.
you wanted a
but-
quick decision anyway. You don't want them to have to think about it for a month. You know, the idea is if they're going to do it, they only need a couple of days to make the decision.
Yeah, but the bottom line is you're not going to get much from the letters. You're going to get that as laying the groundwork for tapping them on the shoulder or picking up the phone and talking to them individually.
Well, the reason I asked is we've been struggling to get them in, you know, just for a black belt update,
Mhm.
you know, so I was thinking that the letter might, you know, give us a better segue.
Yeah. And
Well-
Sal, just by the way, when we said swing for the fences, it was just you know, a word. It wasn't, I don't want you breaking all that glass in that office.
Yeah, Sal just
Actually,
Sal is not
I-
able to sit still for 90 minutes.
I got ADHD.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I have been calling, Mr. Gustavo. I've been calling people left and right. You know, you're talking about the 150 calls. I mean, literally every morning, all I do is call all these parents and ask, and I keep asking. Like Chet Holmes, 8.7 calls. I probably called like all these top A students, and that's what I'm banking on.
Yeah. Well, moving along here, Jason, what are you going to end up the year at?
And by the way, before we jump off at Tim, that does put him up from 84,000 average last year in 21. So that is almost a 20% increase
Excellent.
from the $1 million school. So that's quite an accomplishment too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Congratulations.
I'm sure he's going to be at least 1.5, if not 2 million next year.
1.5 is a high goal next year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're
Jason?
yeah, we're scheduled to be at about 886,000 for the year.
Okay. How's that compared to last year?
Much better. So again, February 2021, we had dropped down to about 15,000 a month. Right. So yeah.
So that's about triple. About triple.
But again, before the pandemic, when we first joined the group, we were at around 15,000. Some months a little bit less, some months might be 18,000, right? And then we grew it up to 48, 49,000. We couldn't quite hit 50. And then the pandemic hit. And then, you know, lost a lot of students. And then February 2021, again, that 15,000 mark, and then started marketing like crazy, doing everything that we knew how to do now. And now we're up to 80,000 a month consistently. So yeah.
Yeah, and if
That's a lot of accomplishment in 1 year to go from that almost starting over is where you were.
yeah, and if 4 or 5 years from now or ago, we had said you'd be at 850, maybe 1 million in 2022, you would have thought we were insane.
I'd be thrilled with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Tim would have.
Yeah.
And next year we know for sure we'll be at 1 million easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be good.
Not Paul
But-
though. Paul was expecting to be there.
And Middleburg, I see Middleburg hiding in the background. Or is somebody there, or do we just have an empty desk? I guess we have an empty desk. Delfino, how are you looking at wrapping the year?
We're about 60K for this year. The last few months, we went down. I know what it is. It was our retention was one of them. And the other one was enrollment. We were fishing in the same pond, but since we up our prices, we've been having a little harder enrolling, but it's just a matter of keep going, not giving up.
Well, 60 meaning per month. What will your year be? Do you have that in front of you?
600K.
Okay. So a little bit of a stretch. You're $1 million next year.
Yes,
Okay. Stephen
that's our goal.
D. Castillo, what's your year looking like?
635, 479 now, sir. So
Okay.
660, 670, hopefully by the end of the year.
Okay. And you could pretty easily break 700.
We'll go for it, sir.
Yeah. So what,
Yes, sir.
how's that compare with last year?
I'm only up like 2.5% right now. I was 619, 668 last year.
Okay. And last year you were up huge compared to the year
Yes, sir.
before,
Yes,
but,
sir. And next year will be the biggest.
yeah, I was going to say, we got to get back on your growth agenda there.
Yes, sir.
Something slipped a little bit. Marty, how are you looking at the end of the year here?
We're going to be at about 360, and we're hoping with the push for the paid in fulls that we'll hit 400.
Yeah. And so we've got a W this year,
Yes, that's what I'm.
and keep California from burning down.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Well, you know what, I don't mean to skip anybody, but let's get a couple things we really have to be doing this month and prepping for next month before we run out of time here. And again, a reminder about the Florida meeting. You should go ahead and at the very least book your hotel pretty quickly, because apparently it's, the early edges of spring break. It's a very popular time to be in Florida. The last few years, it seems like any time is a pretty popular time to be in Florida. So that's coming up in Clearwater Beach. Make sure you've at least booked your hotel and RSVP'd for with Bob. So to prep for the end of the year here, what we've been doing internally, what you should be doing is going back through your stats for the year. And this is one of these broken record type of things. But what I would suggest you do is you go through every lead, every appointment, every enrollment that you've done for the year. And what was the source? How much money did I spend on that source of enrollment? And figure out what your ROI is on each source and each path. And one of the things to do is when you're doing that and you look at what all your sources of leads are, what your cost per lead, your cost per intro, your cost per enrollment is, one of the things to do is you go through and say, was my traffic coming from 20 different sources, or was my traffic coming from like 2 or 3 things? Is all of my traffic coming from Facebook and Google, or am I also getting traffic from live events and from referrals and referral events and pizza parties and birthday parties? And am I stirring up walk-ins? Am I getting traffic from direct mail? I mean, go through the list and make sure that once you look through the year to date, it becomes pretty obvious. Is sometimes you'll go through your year to date and go, holy crap, almost all of our enrollments came from Google and Facebook. Well, good on Google and Facebook, but that means you should be doing a heck of a lot of other stuff, right? So go through all of your lead sources, what the cumulative is year to date, what the ratios are on each source, what the total is on each source. And then the next thing that you need to know is, of the enrollments we did, how many renewals did we did? And of course, as you extrapolate it over a year, if you look at it and say, well, year to date, we've done 300 enrollments, but we did 90 renewals. Well, that shows you have a massive problem. Our target is 75%. And so, and by the way, that's not a high end number. That's kind of just the target is 75%. We've seen schools that are like 92%. But what we want to do is go back through and say, how many enrollments have I done year to date? How many renewals have I done year to date? What's that as a percentage? And by the way, when you're going through those numbers, oftentimes you'll find sources where you have a huge gap, or you'll find that you have a huge gap overall. You can go through and find, well, On online sources, we're only getting 25% through appointment. On live events, we're getting 85% to appointment. Well, okay, that means that your systems for following up on online traffic are FUBAR. You got to go back and fix that. But what you really should be doing is look at what your year-to-date gross is, divide into that how many enrollments you've done year-to-date. That gives you an approximation for your lifetime value per student, right? So if I were to look at it and I've done $1 million and I've done 200 enrollments, that's a pretty easy number to figure out. But you want that number to be trending towards $7,000 to $8,000 per student. And so if it's a low number, that's showing you where a huge opportunity to fix is. Now, the second thing to look at is, and this is the simplest number to compute, is when we work with a new school the first time, they usually don't know what their retention number is. So we always say, well, last year this time, how many active students did you have? Right now, how many active students do you have? How many enrollments have you done? Well, that gives you a really easy way to figure out how many people have dropped out, right? So then you can come up with averages really easy. On average, we had X number of students, and on average, we dropped out X number of students per month. That translates to X. Now, bad schools with bad retention, and by the way, it's most of the industry, whatever their starting number was of new enrollments, of active students, whatever their starting number was of active students, you can add to it however many people they enroll, and they always end up at the same place they started. So they're enrolling 12 students a month and they're losing 12 students a month, and they're a hamster on a wheel running this endless race that gets nowhere, right? So you should really look at that. So look at the market, look at how many sources you have, how evenly balanced it is. Look at what your cost per lead, cost per intro, cost per enrollment is on each of those sources. And if it's heavily weighted towards 1, 2, or 3 things, that means you got to get out and start building the other pieces of the Parthenon. Then you look at the enrollments versus renewals. What are my ratios there? Then you look at this time next year, how many active students did I have? Right now, how many active students did I have? How many have I enrolled through the year? So that tells you what your dropout rate is. Then you look at what's my total gross for the year, divide into that how many enrollments I've done. That gives you an approximation for the lifetime value of a student. And again, we want that to be in the $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 range. We certainly don't want it to be below $5,000. So that gives you a good number. And by the way, labor on this, and then as you go through it, the next number to look at is to go through your P&L numbers and really take a look at how much did I spend on payroll? What is that as a percentage of my gross? How much did I spend on marketing? What's that as a percentage of my gross? How much did I spend on all the other miscellaneous stuff? How much did I spend on rent? What's that as a percentage of the gross? And, in general, the right marketing number is a marketing that has a high return on investment, right? So I hate to focus on a percentage of gross. Generally, we've used a rule of thumb of 12 to 15% of the gross for marketing, but that really isn't a very useful number, truth be told. What is useful is to know I'm paying an average of $600 per new student, and they're bringing me an average of $6,000. Therefore, I have a 10 times return on investment. I'm spending $800 to get a new student. They're on average giving me $600 the day they enroll. So on average, I'm 200 negative the day they enroll, and I'm positive by the time their first payment hits. To know those numbers are extremely important. On the P&Ls, the next number is, it's very, 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 very common to find that the percentage rent versus the revenue is way out of whack. And again, I can make an argument that a portion of your rent really is marketing. So if you're located between the Super Target and the AMC 24-plex, and you get walk-in traffic from both, it's fine to consider a portion of that rent cost to be truly to be a marketing expense. However, if you're not in that kind of location, then what we're looking to make sure is the rent is no more than 12 or 15% of the gross. And I see schools where their rent is 40% of the gross and they think that's just fine. Well, that means you're making the landlord rich, but you're going in the hole dramatically, right? And really what you should be looking at, by the way, is you should be looking at what your upkeep, what your cost of property insurance, because if you're in a retail space, that's all buried in the CAM. But if you're in if you own the building or something like that, see, sometimes I've seen people have a 20,000 square foot facility and they think it's just fine because their mortgage isn't that bad, but then they forget that they have, instead of a $300 electric bill, they have a $2,500 a month electric bill. You know, they have, a big maintenance cost, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got to incorporate all those things. So as you're doing the review, go through lead sources, go through enrollments, go through percentages of each of the factors, go through how many active students end up renewing. And the last thing I would do if it were me is I'd go through all of the ID cards, sort them out by belt rank. And by that, I mean, go through all the ID cards of everybody who's dropped out for the year and figure out where I'm losing them. Now, in almost all cases, the big bubble of where you're losing people is the first 6 months. And the reason you're losing them in the first 6 months is you're not renewing them in the first couple of months, right? So you've got to make sure that you're renewing white belts. But it's a very useful experience to go through everybody who dropped out for the year, look at them by belt rank, figure out how far into the program they got, and then look at them by level renewed. How many of people that dropped out were renewed to leadership? How many of them were renewed to black belt? How many of them got stuck at brown belt and never got their black belt? How many people dropped out at white belt and never got renewed? You know, knowing all those numbers really enlightens your operation on an ongoing basis. Is this making sense for everybody so far? Questions or thoughts about this?
And I think that lifetime student value is really, really critical, Master Oliver.
Mhm.
If you don't have a handle on some of those numbers, you know, we're going through a lot of numbers here and we went through them last week, I think, as well, a little bit for lifetime student value. That's really critical for people. All of them.
Absolutely.
All of
Yeah.
them
Sir,
are.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could you go with some of the rest of those percentages, like the payroll and the other percentages that?
Yeah, well, payroll, payroll is dependent upon whether you're talking about owner operator or you're talking about absentee owner. Most of you are what would be considered an owner operator location, right? As an owner operator, if it's in the range of maybe 33 to 35%, including you, then that's fine. As an absentee owner, which is Sal, Paul, a few of you are in multiple locations. I don't want the payroll to exceed 25%, because then I still need some money left over for administrative and so forth, right? Now, the 33% for your own payroll, including your own payroll, is a tricky number because I've seen people who look at their P&L and they're not making any money, but they're running their Portion 911 through the company, the insurance for the Portion 911, all of their travel expenses, including, the extra week on the beach when they went to Florida and so forth. And by the way, anything that you can legally get away with that your CPA lets you do that passes an audit, you should do, right? But in the franchising world, they call that owner's discretionary profit. Is you want to keep track of that as a separate number and know that your Portion 911 and your, trip to Europe to explore the origin of, European styles of martial arts and so forth really is, personal expense. It's not really a business expense. But within that is, I always recommend that as an owner operator, you're the branch manager. You should have yourself on a 12 or 15% of the gross percentage and a base salary, period. And then you should work everybody else's salary into what you're making. The biggest mistake is I have a program director who's making 10%. I have a head instructor who's making 10%. I have somebody else who's getting paid hourly. I have somebody else who's on salary, and I forget myself, right? And the for you running your business on a regular basis, especially when you're on a down cycle, is if you don't pay yourself and pay yourself first, is you lose some of the drive to make sure you're always making your numbers. You lose some of the drive to make sure the billing is covering all the expenses. And it's really easy to run a pretty high grossing operation and not be making money yourself out of the deal. That's a bad thing to do. Is you want to, when you make payroll, you're making your own check, you're cutting yourself a check every time, you're on a base plus a percentage. And then if you're ever having trouble making payroll, including yourself, you better get to work and fix it right away, right? So, you know, this is not a volunteer operation. This is not now and should never be something where you're not making a living better than your alternative opportunities, right? And that's always my rule for staff as well. I always wanted them to be plus or minus 20% of what their other opportunities were. And really what I preferred it to be is 20% better than what their other opportunities could be. But I never wanted it to be, they can go to work down at the bank and they can make more money, and they're getting constant pressure from the spouse, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the parents or whatever of why don't you get a real job? You know, the answer to that always is, not only is this a real job, I'm doing better than I would have, it's more fun, and I've got more growth opportunities, right? Okay.
Can
So-
I add one more thing in there,
Of course,
Master?
of course.
I think everybody needs to understand, and I'm really impressed that we finally got most of our schools keeping good track of their numbers. And I do say that when you're keeping good track of your numbers, then you're a good beginner business operator. An intermediate business operator is the one who understands the numbers, what Master Oliver was going over when he was talking about all the ROI stuff and all of the student value stuff and all of the numbers, how they work and how they can affect your business. And I call that the intermediate business person. And then the advanced one is the one that learns how to control the numbers. And you learn how to control the numbers by controlling your marketing. And a lot of people just sit back and wait for the numbers to happen. You know, they throw some money in Facebook or some internet stuff, but they're not doing the Parthenon of marketing that Master Oliver's talking about. You know, if you want to be a $1 or $2 million school, you've got to learn to control your marketing. And that means every month I have to have 12 to 20 events going on, internal, external, internet. And then I have to make sure that for next month, by the middle of December, I should have already planned out my January, February, and March marketing plan. I then reevaluate what happened in December so I can adjust my January to make it more on time and up to date on results we got in December of what we want to continue or do something differently or do it differently, but do the same event. In other words, start analyzing that marketing. But that's how you take control of your business. And that's when you've really arrived, is when you can hit that third phase and then start having that marketing. And that marketing, I kind of say, putting the nail on it, is to make sure that all of your marketing is put to a calendar. In other words, it's not just, I'm going to do this in January, but I've actually scheduled this date that I'm doing it. So is your calendar full, and are you keeping track of the results of each one of those marketing ideas to know which ones you need to repeat, which ones you need to tweak, And then that's how you, in essence, take control of your business. And then no longer is your business controlling you, but you get to control your business. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, we're a little over time. But the last thing as a real important note is you need to have a massive everything going at once marketing plan that kicks off right after Christmas. And one of the best months of the year for new student enrollment is January. And in fact, you know, I would argue all the way through May is phenomenal. And then, you know, midsummer is phenomenal, but you want to start the first week in January super strong. And the mistake I see made, and I've seen it made in my own schools over the years as well, the mistake you can make is you take some time off over the holidays, you relax, you know, one thing or another, and you get in there the first week in January, and maybe it's a short week, the first week is a New Year's Day and so forth. And then the first week you do nothing. The second week you don't do much. And by the time January is done, you end up with a really good week or two in a really crappy month. That's not the way to do it, right? The way to do it is you're off to the races quickly. You know, for my big organization, I was always blowing out the budget starting essentially the day after Christmas. So we, you know, in the old days when it was 30-second spots, infomercials, newspaper, ROP, TV guide ads, and so forth, I was blowing it out the week between Christmas and New Year's and the first week of the month and all the way through to Valentine's Day, because I knew that was super strong period of time. And we were going to get flooded with calls. Because again, what do parents do over the holidays? They think about what new activities to get their kids into. What do adults do? They get pissed off at their level of inactivity. They're pissed off about their weight, you know, one thing or another. You know, fitness centers have known this forever, is January is the day everybody goes, makes New Year's resolution, signs up, and then drops out in 4 weeks. But it's also a good time for us. But you got to have the plan. You've got to pull the trigger. One of the things you should pull the trigger on and have it queued up, have it ready to go, is a ton of direct mail based upon everybody who was a prospect in 2022, perhaps going back further. So you should have direct mail hitting right after Christmas, hitting the first week of January. If it were me, I would have at least 6 mailings hit in the first 4 weeks following Christmas.
And everybody you touched, leads, anybody you have their lead stuff, or they made an appointment, or they took an intro and didn't sign up, or even if they dropped out, I mean, all of those touches are important, and each one is a little more solid than another.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the process, you want somebody doing outbound calls to the list. You want to do a crap load of emails to them. And by a crap load, I mean 2 or 3 every day for 3 or 4 weeks. You want text messages. You want automated broadcast voicemails. Every tool we have should be hitting between Christmas and New Year's and hitting at the first of the year, right? Now, again, be careful if all of your staff and everybody is gone all week and you don't have the phones being answered and so forth. Fine, kick it off the first week of the month. But the best thing you could do January 3rd is to have somebody doing outbound calls on that entire list. Start at the top, work your way to the bottom, start again, work your way to the bottom, and go through. Because one of the most fruitful times of the year, and by the way, Master Smith, what you said is everybody who came in for an intro who did enroll, everybody who enrolled and dropped out, everybody who filled out a form on the website and didn't show up for an intro, everybody who gave you a slip at a birthday party, a pizza party, at a live event, everybody you have contact information for, and you can decide how far back to go. You know, with direct mail, you can go back 2 or 3 years. With email, you can do them all. Text messaging and voicemail, ringless voicemail, you can do them all. Actually, outbound calls, I always start with most recent and work my way backwards. So I'm not sure I'd be doing outbound calls to people who came into my pipeline 4 years ago, but I'd certainly be doing outbound calls to people from the last 6 or 8 months. So, but you want to hit the ground running in January. The worst possible thing you can do is take a deep breath, take the holidays off, and kick off your marketing plan first or second week in January and start January off slow, because that's death. That'll kill you. You'll end up having a really good finish to January and a really crappy January. Is that making sense for everybody?
Yeah, and I mean, January 2nd is the Monday, so the day after the 1st. So if you, that's the other dangerous thing. It's not like it's not like the 1st is on a Friday and then you'd start on the Wednesday. So it's really easy to take 3 or 4 days off at the beginning of the year, and then the whole week is shot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Any questions on that before we wrap up? We will have the our special staff training and development meeting tomorrow. It's 10 to noon. Well, a little before noon, but 10 to 11:45 Mountain. Stephen and Amanda Christensen, I see you're here. Probably best thing for you is to join in with everybody else on that. If we want to do a little breakout for Mile High Karate to wrap up the year, we can certainly do that. So anything you need on that side, let me know. And other than that, remember Florida, and I would much appreciate a glowing review on the new book. And at least Steven says it's well worth the read, because it's all the same stuff for whatever you do. Although I think there's a lot of stuff in that book that probably reads different than what we normally talk about for whatever reason, just having the ability to cycle through. Is that a fair statement, Steven?
And your
Yes, sir,
check will
absolutely.
be, your check is in the mail, Stephen.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is awesome. Love it. And this has been an amazing meeting. Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. If we don't see you Thursday, have a wonderful Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, every other damn thing. Have a wonderful holiday.
We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.
I hope you do a deep dive into your year to date and start off the new year incredibly strong.
And let's don't give up on those goals for this year. And don't forget that paid in full contest. I'd like to see a little more results there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not too late to keep going all the way through this week, next week.
Oh, yeah. No, there's huge opportunity. Hey, William Wong, are you still there? Is there a human being behind the name?
Yes, sir. I am here.
Would you mind staying for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Otherwise, thanks, guys.
Okay. See you guys.